Okay, welcome to this domain-driven design meetup. We got the idea with Ilkka when we met earlier this year at the DDD Europe conference that nobody has been talking about domain-driven design recently in Finland. So we thought, okay, there are some good ideas in that community, so let's create a meetup about them. And first, how many here know that what is domain-driven design? Like half, about. And that was also the question I had when I went to the conference a few years ago. That what is domain-driven design? And okay, there's. These are like the main books. Okay, the original book that told about it 15 years ago, and then one Vernon's a bit newer book, and I have read this one because it's the shortest of those. It's only a bit over 100 pages, so the other ones are 600 pages. But when this blue book was originally released, there was, when I read some articles online, quite many of them emphasized the technical patterns in the book. But then those are kind of missing the point, and Eric has said that okay, if he would be able to do the book again, then he would take the technical patterns which are near the beginning of the book, compress them to about 10 pages, and put them to the appendix. And then okay, here's one person's recommendation that okay, when you read the book, okay, first read the first 3 chapters, then jump over technical patterns, then and read up from chapter 11 to the end about the high level design, and okay, then go back, and those things will fall nicely into place. And when I was at this DDD conference last year, I was asking people there that okay, what is domain-driven design? And okay, I got a couple answers, like okay, one Vernon was there, and he emphasized that it's about these boundaries, the bounded contexts, and when you are working inside the bounded context, your goal is to improve the business side of things. And then okay, one other conference attendant said that in DDD it's important to keep on digging deeper, that why people are doing things the way they are doing, and that way understand the business better, to be able to then model it in the programs correctly. And Eric Evans, when I asked that, okay, can you explain that what is DDD, and he said yes. And okay, then he said that okay, that what's his keynote from last year, that it's thus far the best explanation that he has been able to make of the topic. So I think okay, let's watch those first about 30 minutes of that presentation, and then we can discuss a bit that okay, what is domain-driven design, and so we get on the same page about things. Okay, so that was a bit the first author's explanation that what is domain-driven design, and okay, some notes about that. What explained about it was that okay, we want to focus on the difficult parts of the domain and solve those instead of the instead of focusing on the technical problems, and then this collaboration with the business experts, those that know the domain, that's important, and the model that we come up with in collaboration, it should show up in the code. All those concepts and the names that we use them, and then we are building this ubiquitous language to talk about the problem in a more increasingly precise way. And okay, and then there are many techniques that okay how to do these things, and then Ilkka will now talk about one technique, and or maybe Ilkka can also explain that. Okay, what is his idea? That what is domain-driven design?
Absolutely. Hello everybody, my name is Ilkka, and like Esko said, we met last year. Was it this year? Anyway, yeah.
I think this year. Yeah.
In that conference which took place in Amsterdam, I realized in that conference that for me the domain-driven design was mostly finding software development again. It was like a flashback when I went into my first studying time programming course, and where we actually concentrated on the problem, and we were solving the problems. We didn't care about Spring, we didn't care about databases, we didn't care about anything fancy technology or framework. We only concentrated on the problem. Then along the way, when you went, and I went also in the working life, there were so many new things to learn, new frameworks, new people, and along the way I kind of lost, and I think I'm not the only one. We really lose what's really important, and it's concentrating on the problem. And in that conference, I realized that that's what domain-driven design actually is. Working together, learning, and concentrating on the problem, forgetting everything else. Once you have solved the problem, and you have come up with some kind of model together with the business analyst, then you proceed. Then you select the right technologies, and so on. So, a little bit first about myself. I like to title myself nowadays as software craftsman, and I'm running my own business. I have something like 20 years experience from multiple companies, from multiple lines of business, and I'm concentrating on a business-driven solutions. For me, that is, I really first like to understand what we are really solving, and then proceed with technical solutions. It says there DDD since 2013. That was actually the first times I came across this. I read the Blue Book. It has terms and chapters about entities, about repositories, about value objects, about something. And I first thought, okay, it's just plain old crude where you have database and you have entities and so on. And many people do that mistake when they first read the book, but that's not what it is. It's concentrating on the problem. And now I will present you one technique which I usually use to find out those aggregates, bounded contacts, and events, which are coming more and more important in current world of microservices. It says here, once upon a time I went to work for a company or something, but it's usually many times I go to work for a company. I find out something like this exists. There is Doris, the domain expert, which wants something, talks his or her own language. There might be many of those. And then on the left-hand side, there is Danny, the IT developer, who is doing his or her job with the fancy technologies, fancy frameworks, fancy everything. And between there is Paddy, the product owner. And there might be multiple teams, there might be multiple domain experts, but there are only few product owners who act as barrier between the tech people and the business people. And this solution usually leads implementing solutions like this. We have monolithic applications. Those boxes inside that monolithic applications express the bounded context they have founded. And as you see, they overlap between each other. So the boundaries as such, which Eric Evans also said it's quite important, they are not clear. And usually there is one single database through which everything is integrated together. Then somebody in a company reads about microservices, and then this monolithic application is migrated into something like this. So we don't have one big application. Yes, we have many applications, but we haven't really done anything else than just transform this monolith application into a bunch of single applications, still having inconsistent boundaries and still integrated through one monolith big database. So my question usually at this point is that where are my events and where are my aggregates? And more importantly, where are my bounded contexts and boundaries? I don't see them anywhere. So what I usually suggest to do is to forget IT and tech and embrace learning, what I said in the beginning, what domain-driven design and what software development really is. It's about learning the problem together. And I hope you agree with me that these three people, the businesswoman, Paddy, the product owner, and then the IT developer, and Doris, the businesswoman, domain expert, they all need to know what's actually happening in their systems. And what I usually suggest us to do is to go in a big meeting room where we have a big wall, where we actually start telling the story what's happening within the system or in our company in the form of facts. I prefer use the word fact over domain event. I found out that the term domain event, some business people might find that a bit too technical, and they might not be that into this form of finding the aggregates and events if I use the word domain event. That's why I prefer to use the word fact. So the fact is something that happens in your system in past tense. You ask people to put everything they think is happening in their system in past tense on a wall. And in the beginning, this is really chaotic because you will have a bunch of those. You might have same event with multiple wordings. You mix the boundaries, and that's quite natural because I showed you earlier that there is no clear boundaries in the system at this point. And once we think we have all the events on a wall, we work together and we put them in timely manner. The event that happens first is on the left-hand side, and as we proceed further and further, on the right-hand side, we put events that are happening after that one. Yes, I know there are events that happen parallel. Yes, I know there are events that you cannot put on a single lifeline, but what I have found out is that the time is the best option to start making some sense what's actually happening in your system. And actually it's also good in a way that if it helps you to find out things that are happening in a parallel. It helps you to find out what is the important. It helps to embrace learning. It helps to embrace discussion. It helps to embrace finding what's actually bottleneck. Once you have the events on a wall, it's the first time you actually know what's happening. You can do this for IT process, IT system. You can even do this to discuss together with your wife what's happening in our house during the evening. So once you have the events on a wall, next thing you want to put there is all the external systems that you are interacting with. And coloring here is, I prefer to use this coloring. Some people don't, but I prefer. So those facts or domain events, I always use orange post-it, and for the external system, I use pink. So you put all the external systems that are interacting in your system, and I tell you, you will learn a lot. You will find out, oh my God, are we dealing with so many different external systems? And next thing I ask people to do, and it's kind of a bit of voting, is that wherever we have challenges, we add a red note, like something takes too long, or where we have possibilities to improve, we put a green. And at this point, you can stop the process if you want. You have learned a lot. But the most important thing here, and I can't express and underline this enough, is that the Doris, the domain expert, Patty, the product owner, and Danny, the IT developer, they are all on the same page. What is happening? They have all learned a lot from their systems. They all know where they have the bottlenecks and things they can improve. And they all know where the possibilities in a system are. And you can do this even though you don't practice DDD. But this system works well with DDD. And this system also works well with the people who don't have IT expertise. So you can bring any people in the room who wants to learn about the business, who has something to say, from whom you want to learn something. This is where I usually stop first. I will have this thing on a wall for a couple of days, even for a week. People might people might come up with some new ideas. You might have some new events. So after a week or so, then I move forward, and now it is more technical. And from now on, you work until you have a solution. What is the best way to implement your software? Maybe not the best way, but one way to implement your software. You might find many ways to implement your software when you do this, but this is just a one way. So next thing you do is that you will add users, and for the users I use small yellow post-its, and you add commands in your system. Well, the events cannot happen unless somebody triggers a command that makes something to happen. And what events can do is that they can actually trigger more commands and more events and so on. The next thing I do is that I will make the data what is needed to make this command visible. And you add it to all the commands on a system. And then I add policies. The policies are something which happen when you actually react to events. And when you talk with the business people and domain experts and so on, you hear them saying that whenever this thing happens, we need to do this. And that's where you find the policies. And that's where you can link the policies into your events. At this point, you have found out a lot. But what is still missing are two things. We still haven't found out our aggregates or our bounded contacts. And the second last thing is that I actually add the aggregates. They will be the big yellow post-it notes in my exercises. And you found names for them. Yes. And then it's quite natural that after you have everything this in place, you have the events, you have the users, you have the external systems, you have the data you need to make the command, you have the command, you have the policies, and then you have the aggregates. It's quite natural then to find those boundaries and bounded contacts as well. Of course, this example I'm showing you here, it's very, very simple. Usually the wall where this exercise takes place, it's 10 meter, 15 meter long. There are from 100 even to 1,000 events happening. So you learn a lot. And even though this might sound easy, this might sound easy, this is actually quite hard. But as you go through this, you have identified what happens in your system, events or facts. You prefer the naming. You know what commands there are and who executes those commands. You have identified the candidate for aggregates, and you have identified the bounded contacts. After you have come up with some kind of flow with all of this, you have some users, you have the commands, you have the events, policies, and aggregates in place. You should continue implementing some kind of solution, even a small proof of concept. And like I said in the beginning, the technology or framework is not really important. Use whatever you find most useful for you. It might be .NET, C#, F#, it might be Java, it might be Scala, it might be Clojure, it might be PHP. Yes, some people practice this with PHP as well. It might be Python, anything. What you feel comfortable. And find out whether that model and flow of events and everything actually works or not. If it doesn't, go back to your drawing board, talk more with the business people, talk more with all the relevant people, and find out the second alternative path, which you might then try to implement. And I can promise you that in the end, you will have something like this. You have actually microservices with clear boundaries, with not one monolithic database, but separate databases. You have events bubbling in your system. And this is actually more comfortable to continue developing with a system like this instead of this one big monolith application. Yes. Yeah, like I said, this might sound simple. Does this work because it's so simple? Yes. Again, can't embrace this enough. This makes people talk and walk in collaborative mode. First steps do not require IT nor business competence. You can take whoever in the meeting room and start finding out those events. Anyone in an organization can attend. The implicit things comes explicit. Sometimes when you go to work for a new company and you take the code from the repository, you compile, you press F5 or something else in your IDE to start the solution, and it doesn't, then you talk to the guy next to you. Oh, you need to do this and that and that. That's the implicit things. You make those implicit things to come explicit when you make modeling like this. You actually know more after you have done this first time than you did before from your software, from your company, from your fellow coworkers. Yes, this thing is also called event storming. And there is a link to ThoughtWorks tech radar I checked today. And this is now on adopt phase, meaning people actually should look what this is about. Like said, you don't really need to practice DDD with this system, but this works well with DDD. And as you saw, this works well with microservices as well. If nothing else, you found out the events that you need sending in your systems. Once you have the microservices and events, it enables you much more many new things, real-time processing and whatever. That was what I had to say to you. Thank you for listening. Contact details are there as well. I guess, Esko, you will share this presentation after the meetup somehow. Yeah. I will be here after the speeches, so you want to discuss more, you have some questions, I'm available. Or if you have some questions right now, I can take a couple before Esko continues. All right?
So I have one practical question. So you can easily, like, I think, describe the process in whiteboard or something, but how you usually document that? Meaning that because someday you have to remove those stickers away
Yes.
on the wall.
Yes.
So how you usually document this so that like
Actually, one.
generations after generation understand how this microservice example behaves and things like that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't waste those. I might roll the papers and put them in the corner. I can take them back. But yes, that's actually a very, very good question. You should document what you think you should document. Yes, of course, once you have some ideal solution that these will be my processes, responsibilities being this, and how they interact together, yes, document that in a level you think you should document. That would be my answer. Many companies, they have some guidelines for architectural documents, from process documents. If you need to fulfill those, then fulfill those. But like I said, at least after running this in practice, you have a better understanding also from the architectural point of view, what kind of things you actually should have in your system, and maybe that helps you. There was, okay, yeah.
I was thinking that if you have a large domain, you might have several domain experts from different departments, like for fulfillment department, or history, commerce, application. How many people do you have in the conference room at one time? And if you have different audience, do you continue with the same board with this post-it notes, or do you start from like their perspective of the things, like when they receive order or something?
Good question. First of all, I usually try to work more on a facilitator mode. So I try to make people to work. With 30 people, you could manage it on your own. With 50 people or so, you need co-facilitators with you. The wall is big because I like, as you said, people from the different departments work together parallel at the same time. With the audience like that, it might take a couple of days to find out all the events, put those in their own kind of a context, formulate those on a timely manner. But I like as many departments as possible to be present because that embraces discussion. Usually the companies, they are in silos. So if you are in a marketing department, you don't really care what happens on a financing department and vice versa. If you put those departments on the same floor, making explicit what's happening, they actually know, oh, that needs to happen that I can do this, or this needs to happen that I can do that. So put as many people as you can handle by yourself. If you think you can handle 10 people, take 10 people. If you think 20, take 20. As you practice this more, it's like with everything, your skills will improve and you can take more people in the room. Yeah.
Oh yeah, one additional question was that in many cases people are thinking first on business model that they try to solve. How you usually start? Do you have this picture, like the processes, or you just like to start to solve it? I mean, for example, the ordering, you may have also need, for example, canceling and this kind of actions. So you may have like small business model, if you understand.
Not
I mean, because
really.
you may have parallel like actions. Example, in
Yeah.
your example, you have this order,
Yeah.
but also you may have like canceling and different
Yes,
actions.
yes.
based on the business.
There you actually need to find out the best way what fits for your audience. For some organization, you can have everything on a timely manner. For some organizations, you actually need to do a bit of swim lane thing with the processing. There is not one exact answer how to deal. You actually need a little bit to learn on the fly as well. This might suit best for this organization and this audience. Yes, but you can't really know that before you have first events on a wall and you ask people to start working with them. Yeah.
What kind of challenges you have had with this approach? Have you seen any concepts that doesn't fit too well for this?
Challenges are mostly in the people sometimes, but that also tells something about the organization. In some organizations, there might be some guy who thinks he knows the best. And in those situations, the learning and the discussion might die. That would be the biggest challenge, I would say. And then you had a continuing question?
Have you seen any concepts that doesn't fit into these kind of...
What do you mean by that concepts? I mean...
Like, now you described some sort of web store, I guess.
Yeah. Not really. This can be used pretty much on anything, because like in anything, things happen. Things happen. Like I said, you can even model your evening at home. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention, where this is actually really good, is when you have a new recruit coming into your team. You ask them to put the events on a wall. What do you think will happen in our system? They will learn and you will learn. This guy thinks this is happening in our system. He put something on a wall, or she, on a wall which you didn't think is happening in your system. And then when you ask, why did you put that? You will learn more yourself as well. Yeah, you had a question, yeah?
Yes, more or less similar as the previous question about challenges. And I have two scenarios. I would like to ask for the challenge first. If the team size is big, do you think coordinating among teams would be a big challenge for this model? A second scenario is if the team size is small, for example, only have 3 developers, 3 business experts. Do you think that especially when implementing the software in this DDD, do you think the team is too small to apply this concept?
No, I don't think so. With big teams, there was a question earlier that if you have many departments, it's a bit similar question. Take all the people in a room who wants to be in a room. If it's too big that you can't handle it, then have a couple of sessions. Have a session first with some amount of people, then a second with some amount of people, and in the end you have had everybody in a room. And as your skills improve, you can take more people in a room. As you have practiced this couple of times in your organization, people have also learned this, so they know what this is all about, and then you can increase the number of people. Then the second question, if you have only 3 developers and 3 business experts, that's not really the point here. The point is more like how big system you have. You can handle a big system with 3 developers and 3 business experts. The bigger the system is, the more you should do this, because more the events and more collaboration and cooperation and cohesion there is. That's what I would say.
I'm kind of curious about, can you go back to the slide where you showed all the components? Yeah, this one. I'm kind of curious how you derive the second diagram, the result one, the kind of architecture style.
That one?
Yeah, this one. Derive this diagram from the first one.
Right.
And the second question is this is kind of a single user story. And if you have multiple user stories, multiple this kind of sequences, how do you derive the second diagram? Because they will share some kind of common components from this. Yeah.
Well, if we stick into this particular very simple user story, like you said, you have the words order and invoicing. We have processes or services called order and invoicing. Then we had a commands make order, dispatch invoice. What's the last one? It's get payment. They are just, I model that they are commands that are happening in this system. And then I model the events that are flowing in the system and bubbling from the systems. That's one way to architect it. You can also, if you like, to have this in a one monolith application. But compared to very, very first picture which I showed to you, where all those things were overlapping each other, the context, bounded contexts were not clear enough. In this system, the contexts are clear. Then the second question, yes, you can have multiple user stories or command for the same component, but it is which you will then find out here when you model those different parts or user stories, or how do you want to call them. You will have these aggregates, and you will find out that, okay, I will have this order here, I will have this order again here, I will have this order again here. That's where you find out that, okay, this aggregate seems to be responsible of these things. But what I have found out, and where this all begin with, is that what people know is that what happens in their system, and something happens in a timely manner. Even though they are separate user stories, like you said, you use the term canceling. To cancel something, I guess you first need to have something. So something happens first, then you cancel it. And then along this path, you will have this very same aggregate happening multiple times, or just once, or I don't know.
So you like have a single
If it makes sense to tell the story, yes. If you need to have these swim lanes to tell your story, then you have the swim lanes. But you can't really tell beforehand which works best. You need to first find out the events which are actually happening in your system. Yeah?
Can you tell what are the boundaries in this example?
Yes, of course. The order here, I guess, comes up until to this point, and the invoicing is the rest. I didn't mark it here, but usually when you have this thing in a wall, it's a good practice to have some kind of tape or something, then to express the boundaries well as well. That I forgot from this picture to make it clearer. Good question, yes. All right?
And then referring to the earlier slides from, sorry, what was your name?
Esko.
Esko S. But what is DDD? I just noted a bit. It's like it says it's about boundaries and connection between the boundaries. So back to your slides of this invoice and order. What will be? Does this show connection? So it doesn't.
Say again, please.
Given the definition that DDD is about boundaries and connections between the boundaries.
Yes.
And now you've shown two, the order and the invoicing.
Yes.
So does it show the connection? Like you have the connection, or is this the one which shows the connection?
Yeah, well, yes, it pretty much is. Right. This order thing, it can exist without the invoicing. And invoicing can exist without the ordering. They can be separate. But the connection here is that once somebody makes an order, the event will be bubbling from that one, and then somebody, in this case it's invoicing, is interested of this thing, order made event, and then it will trigger a dispatched invoice command in this context. There could be some third context over here as well, interested of this, and then doing something else. This connection, I here use events. Some people would just make a direct API call or something else, and then that would be the connection. But I use events here just to express the thing that when some command is executed, something happens, which then triggers something else.
Right.
Yes.
And then in your experience, the thinking of UMLs, diagrams. Do they kind of express this DDD stuff?
In some extent they do, yes. But I prefer not to use UML when I work with the business people. Because when I tell them that, okay, now we need to do UML diagrams, it's again something they don't really know about, and it could make them a bit offended to work with you. Right. So I try to keep this as simple as possible so that anyone can attend. Then, as Jari asked about the documentation, then when you go further and you are happy with your solution, yes, then you can use UML to document the things from technical point of view. Right. Yeah. All right.
In a sense, that's like more closer to like kind of user-driven design, but for like the system and data models.
Not really. This can be from user point of view, but commands can be executed by the systems, yeah, by the anything, and then more importantly, this is the behavior driven. Yeah. You don't model the data. You don't start from the data because you don't really know what data you need. Yes, along this thing, you will have these green things where you have the data you need. But in this model, it's not really important how you will persist your data, whether you use sequential database, whether you use flat file, whether you use NoSQL. It's not really important. The important thing is that what's happening, by whom, to which aggregate, what data they need to do to fulfill that command. Yeah, I know we are taught usually when we have a problem, now you need to design sequential database. You need to have third normal form of the database. Then you have entities. Then you have a repository on top of that. Then you have a web layer. That's how we usually do the applications. And that's where we usually go wrong, because we forget the behavior. It's just my opinion, but it's... Yeah. Well...
Okay, thanks. Well, this was a pretty, like a small example, a small domain. What if you have like a huge monolith, say, in the millions lines of code, well, lines of code is a bad measurement, to give a sort of sense of the scale, how do you identify the high-value bounded context, where to start from, to sort of form the shape of a more service-oriented or microservice-oriented architecture?
That's usually at this point. You have hundreds of events. You have worked hard and you have put those in a logical slots on your wall. You have formulated those on a timely manner. And then as you have talked with the people, you have spotted out these challenges you have, and on the other hand, the possibilities you have. And if you have a challenge, which many people actually agree that this is a really challenge in our system, I would say that's where you actually should start, to resolve that challenge. And then I would say, most probably have made many people happy. And as this also answer a little bit more to you, and as you have these possibilities and challenges, you can actually ask people to vote. Everybody has, up to you, 2 votes. You can put 2 votes. You can either put your 2 votes on a single challenge or possibility, or you can split them. And that's actually a very good way to find out what is the biggest challenge or the biggest possibility in your system. And in that voting, you should be careful, Because usually in organizations there are people who have very strong opinions. So you could ask those people to vote last, so that other people's opinions are not biased by this strong person. Yeah?
On practical question, do you actually speak with the business people, for example, what kind of data is written, or like attributes, like in this order made? Or you deal with this like more technical people? Which level you usually?
You mean when we go more into this one?
Like those order made, like product idea.
I would say that when you are doing this up until this point, you have more business people with you.
Okay.
But when you go to this point, you should have some people who knows the domain well as well with you.
Otherwise you won't have this aggregates.
Yes. Oh, well, you would, but wouldn't those be the best one? It's another question, yes. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Esko, inviting me.
Okay, so this was about event storming, and next let's have a look at another technique that plays nicely together with it, called event sourcing, which is an implementation technique. And how many here know about event sourcing? Know something? Okay, about half. How many of you have used an event sourced system? Or okay, a bit less. Now I'm worried because if you are developers, then all of you should be using a popular event sourced system, which is called version control. And so the main idea with event sourcing is that instead of us storing the current state of the system, we store all the events that have happened in the system. Like in the version control, it remembers all the changes we have made since the beginning of time, and that makes it an event source system. We get the current state by going through all the past events, and then we can find out what is the current state of the system. For example, like a bank account works, the saldo on your bank account, that's not what your bank account really is. What is in your bank account is all the transactions, money in, money out, all those transactions. Those are the important data, and when you sum them together, okay, then you get the last, the total. So in a CRUD system, okay, we have the current state, and then we do updates to it, so it's mutable data. And when we change a value, then okay, we lose the old value of the data. And typically, in a database system, we have this one schema in the database, and when we do updates to it, okay, when we use the same schema, and then when we show data, okay, we read the same schema. So we have one model that needs to serve two quite different purposes. Whereas in event sourcing, we store those events that we talked about earlier. We put them all into just append them to one after another, so there's order to them. And then once we save an event, okay, we don't anymore change it. It's there. It's history. We keep all the history, and we can have then multiple models for doing operations on this data. Typically, we have at least two. Like we have one, when we do updates, we want to update stuff or create new events. Then okay, we read the old events to some data structure or database that makes it easy for us to make the update, and then then we produce the event, and then for different use cases we can create separate models for reading. For example, serving the searches on our website or doing some other read operations, we can have a specific model for this purpose, maybe stored in a database, maybe have it in memory. And because the master data is the events, and we can easily read those events and then based on them update all these multiple models. But I won't go into detail what is event sourcing, or there are lots of videos about introduction to event source systems. Like Greg Young was one of those who coined the term. So you can find multiple talks about him. Quite many of them are the same. Here's one. I think this had a bit different content. And then here was one quite good presentation from someone else. And then this was an interesting presentation from Netflix, that how they are using event sourcing in the systems. I think it was part this kind of system that when you watch some videos on Netflix and you download them offline, then it needs to manage all those licenses, that you have now a permission to watch this video, and that system needs to be very scalable, because they have millions of users, and it needs to be always operational, because if this system is down, then nobody can watch anything. And then they talk about the event sourcing based solution to it. But I will. You can take a picture with your camera, or I will put the slides online. So there are some pointers to look on your own time. And in this presentation, I will want to show like a concrete example of what does an event source system look like. And I've been working on a demo application where I can play with event sourcing and see how it works and get more experience, and it will also be useful for demonstrating stuff to others. And let's see if I can show the application. So here is my this hotel reservation system, and I'm not a graphic designer, so it's a coder's UI. But so let's say I want to book a room. Let's say from that I arrive on Saturday and maybe leave on Sunday and arrive on Friday. So it's like two nights. Let's find a room. It says that's the time I want to visit, and that's how much it will cost me. And here in the logs there are a bunch of events it produced. For example, we produced an event that we offered a price to the customer, and for this night the price is 54 euros, and this offer is valid for the next 30 minutes. So if if it takes longer than 30 minutes, then okay, we have a dynamic algorithm that calculates the prices. So okay, after 30 minutes, we will recalculate the price and offer something else to this person. And then okay, for this night, the other night the price is 84 euros. So what is shown here to the user is the total. And then okay, I can make my reservation and make reservation, and things happened here. It saved that okay, we have made a reservation, and then a few seconds later, or a few milliseconds later, something else happened. It booked a room for us. Okay, this is a asynchronous system. When we loaded this page, it didn't yet have a room, but okay, now when I refresh the page, okay, the system actually did assign a room for us. And then we have this like the hotel administrator's view. Okay, we have some reservations in our hotel, and then we have our hotel has 5 rooms, and okay, this one of them has a reservation in there. The UI isn't quite user friendly yet, but the data is there. And now then let's go through the events that happened during those during this time that I showed you. So at first there is this command. I click there that okay, find me available rooms during these dates, and that command, when it comes to our system, okay, it says that okay, the reservation aggregate knows how to handle this command. So then we send the command to the reservation, and we produce 4 events. So okay, we save an event that okay, we discovered a customer. Maybe there would be some extra data, okay, where the customer is from and whatnot. And then okay, we save an event that the customer searched for accommodation, and those are the dates. And this is very important information afterwards if we want to analyze that. Okay, what kind of patterns are we seeing in the customers, and maybe there's some concert or some other event happening, and lots of people come book our rooms. Okay, then we will know that okay, now this is a good day to sell our hotel rooms. So okay, we will increase our prices. And okay, then we produce 2 more events about these offers that we made to the customer. So for 2 nights, and okay, that's the night for the price for those nights. Then after that, the customer is looking at things, and okay, he decides, okay, I want to make this reservation. He fills in the form, types in his name and email, and makes this command, okay, make reservation. Then okay, it goes to the same reservation aggregate, and okay, we save the contact information. We produce an event that contact information updated. Then we initiate the reservation, save the arrival date and departure date and the check-in and check-out time. Check-in is at 2 p.m. and check-out is at 12 p.m. And then for billing purposes, okay, we do these line item created events. For in case the customer wants to extend his stay or maybe shorten it, maybe he leaves 1 day early, so then if he only stays for one night, okay, then it's important we know that, okay, what was the price for the other night, so we can refund the payment. Okay, and then the next parts happen inside the system without the user doing anything. So on the previous slide, there was the reservation initiated event that was produced. So now we have a policy or process manager that listens for these reservation initiated events. And when it sees one happening, system then it produces a command that occupy any available room, because we don't yet have any, we haven't yet assigned this reservation to any room. So it will produce a command that, okay, system, please do that. And okay, this command goes to, we have a command handler that doesn't yet have a name, but okay, what it needs to read that what rooms do we have, what are and what rooms are available. So it reads that information from a read model, and this read model has been produced based on events about, okay, events like this, that okay, room occupied, room released. So okay, based on that kind of events, we can produce a read model where we can quickly find out, okay, what are the rooms that are currently available. And okay, so we check the read model and seems that, okay, room ID 212, so on, it has space in it, so okay, then we send that occupy room command to the room aggregate for that particular room, and okay, then it agrees that, okay, that room is available, and then produce an event that, okay, now this room is occupied for that time period. Then after this room occupied event has been produced, then the same reservation process that originally triggered this command to allocate a room. Now it sends. Now it hears about this and is happy, and then it says to this reservation that, okay, assign this reservation to that room, and then the reservation aggregate produces an event that, okay, now this room has been assigned for this reservation. And that's how in an event source system things flow, and also when we have multiple aggregates which might be inside the same process, or they might be separate microservices, then okay, then we need this kind of process handlers there, or policies to handle this coordination between them. And we can have a look at some code that what it looks like. But okay, at the high level, if you know functional programming, then okay, this slide explains pretty much everything about event sourcing. So we have command handlers. They take in the current state and a command, and based on that they produce a list of events, or that they throw an error if they decide that this command is not allowed at this state. And projections, they take the current state and they take a new event, and based on that they produce the next version of the state. And then we use the reduce operation to read through all the events in the system and arrive at the current state. So if it would be closer, then it would be something like this. But okay, I suppose most people are more familiar with Java. Then okay, this is the language that the system is actually implemented, and we have these command handlers that okay occupy a room. So somebody calls it, passing okay, what's the date range and who is the occupant who will be occupying it. Okay, if the room is already reserved, then we throw an exception, and if the room is available, then okay, we produce an event that okay, the room was occupied. And to be able to do this decision that okay, is the room occupied, we are listening for events that we are listening for the room occupied events. So this method will be called for all events for this room about the room occupied event, and we can then store them in a data structure that is optimized for serving this need. Currently not very optimized, but we could easily swap in a smarter data structure than just a list. And the contract here is that okay, these event listeners, they are allowed to mutate the state, but they must not throw exceptions. And if there are things that okay, our system evolves and we create a new version of the room occupied event. That's a screensaver, I think. No. Then if there are new fields added to the event, then okay, then in here we could do, for example, okay, if the field is missing because it's from an older event, okay, we can put in a default value for those things. But okay, but we don't throw exceptions, otherwise it will freeze the system. And then okay, the command handlers, they are not mutating this state we have here, but instead what they do is they publish events, and then okay, these events that it produces, those are then saved to the database, and then they are later used to then update this model we have here. And then if we look at okay, what is this magical aggregate root base class? To understand that, okay, let's see that okay, how is this command handler used? So okay, here is the call to this occupy method. So we have a command comes from the somewhere, and we read the current version of the room aggregate from the repository, and okay, we also read that okay, what is the version number, and then we do stuff, and then after that we save it, and we check that this save will check that nobody else has modified this room while we were doing our command. So it's a strongly consistent operation. And then this is then the base class of aggregate root. So when we create a new room instance, then okay, we will load from history all the events. It will call the apply change event, which will call this, and then when we are publishing events, then okay, we save those new events in here, so that when this save is called, Let's go inside the save method. Then this repository will ask the aggregate that, okay, give me all your uncommitted changes, and then it will save them to the database. And basically this 50 lines or so, it's enough to create an event source system. So you probably don't need a framework for doing stuff like this. And it's also a good way to learn about things, that okay, how they really work when you try to implement them yourselves instead of like taking a ready-made library or frameworks from somebody. I don't know. Do you have what questions do you have? Concurrency. Which aspect of it?
Well, to me, the code would seem to be a little bit suspicious when you make a reservation. So you get the ID and later save it.
Yeah.
Not in the transaction. So how this works if they are at the same time to handle calls?
Yes. Yeah. So if there are two concurrent requests to the same room, then this save it will one of those will pass, and then okay, this save will throw an exception for the other one, because the repository it will.
It's a listener, and it's not allowed to throw exceptions.
This is a command handler. So okay, command handlers are allowed to throw exceptions, and in case it's this kind of exception that there was a concurrent modification, then we can easily retry it. Okay, there was a concurrent modification. Let's just retry the same command maybe one or two more times, and so what's the word? It's not multi-version concurrency control. No, I think not exactly that, but checking lazily that okay, nobody else modified it while we were doing our stuff.
Do you use any message queues for events?
Not really message queues. The database is actually you can think of the database as a queue. I can. Here is an. I'm using a Postgres database, and okay, there's one table with all the events. But okay, here I also have an in-memory version of the database, so this is a bit easier to read the code. So I have operations that I can read all the events that have happened for a single aggregate, or I can read all the events that have happened in the system, or like everything. And so then when there is some system that wants to know about new events, it can for example it can just poll this event that okay, it will remember that what was the last event that it read. So okay, it can give that as a parameter that okay, I have read 5 events. Okay, please give me event number 6 and everything since then. And that's basically like a queue. And the benefit of doing it like this is that the event producer or the database, it doesn't need to remember that, okay, who is using it. Because these read models, they are expendable. We can, if we create a new read model, we start it up, and it can start reading the events since the beginning, and the database doesn't need to know about or coordinate those things. So the consumer is in control that, okay, what events it reads. So, but okay, for it's also useful if you can get a notification. Okay, now there are new events. So you could still have maybe like an event bus or something that people can read that, okay, systems can read that, okay, what are the new latest events, and they can read from there if they are interested about new events. But okay, if they want some historical events, they can just straight away ask the database for those. Yep.
Are there some best practices for modeling event source databases? At least I would want to build all the aggregates and everything myself from scratch.
There are things that you don't need to create from scratch, like the database part usually. I think this is event store. This is a popular database that is designed for event sourcing. So you can use something like this to persist the events to the database. But okay, then the code for the aggregates and so on. Okay, that's very simple. You can easily write those 50 lines of framework code yourself, and then when your application starts getting like a bit specialized requirements, that then you can easily modify the small framework that you have.
But shouldn't you have kind of like, for example, snapshots of the aggregate database and so on? So
Yeah.
So this handles all that as well.
Well, depends on what you mean by snapshot.
Let's say I have a shopping cart which has like 5 added items, and I don't want to always count the 5 items from the database, but I want to view that 5 items and these 5, like number 5 and 5 different items as a row, for example, or as an object.
Yeah. When we are talking about maybe some tens of events or maybe 100 events, okay, actually reading those is very, very quick from the database. It's just a sequential read. So, okay, but then when we talk about thousands of events, for example, at Netflix, okay, they record every time you press a button, start playing something, okay, that easily becomes thousands of events over some months or years. Then we can do so that, okay, for each of our read model or write model, we have that, okay, we save that what is the current state at, let's say, event 100, and okay, we save it there, and then when somebody when we need to read the data, okay, we check, okay, what is the latest snapshot we have? Okay, we have a snapshot for event 100, okay, let's read that, and then let's read the events starting from 101 onwards. So this is how to handle it when we have thousands of events in the same aggregate. So it's a little bit more work, but you can first start, okay, maybe let's first do no snapshotting, see how the performance is, and keep an eye that okay it seems okay, reading this particular aggregate it's starting to get a bit slow. Okay, let's let's start making snapshots of that one. Yep.
When would you go for event sourcing and when would you go for flood? Is it particularly good fit for a certain domains, or what kind of properties make a project or product good fit for event sourcing?
Maybe one good property is that you care about what has happened in the past. So, well, quite many business domains go quite naturally with that. Okay, it's useful to have the information of the history, but I don't know. Let's see what would be a case that doesn't benefit from it. I don't know. It's hard to come up with good examples. Does somebody have an example?
So basically, anything that you need to audit that definitely benefits in the
Yeah.
because they will just have the full history then.
Yeah, and actually.
This is really popular among sports betting and financing.
Yeah, actually, just I don't know, was it last month or Amazon announced that they this kind of QLDB, Amazon Quantum Ledger Database, which is it's basically event source system, but with also with extra verification that okay, nobody's modifying the data. A bit like blockchain, except that it's not consuming all the energy in the world. But okay, so if you need this kind of auditing capability, then okay, something like this could be a good implementation for the event source database.
Is it like easy to add this event sourcing to existing projects?
Probably not easy, but maybe something that, let's say you have an existing product and you want to migrate to you want to create a replacement, then okay, maybe first modify the existing product so that it starts producing the events and just saves them somewhere.
I would say that first study what events are happening in your system.
Yeah.
Then you actually can make a fair judgment whether you actually should go towards event sourcing or not.
If you have event sourced, for example, user profile, and you update first name, would you store update first name as an event, or would you store the whole user profile as an event, or new user profile?
I think whichever way would be fine.
Yeah, but shouldn't you then be going back in history to find last name if you store only
Well, okay, let's say okay, you have events that okay, first name updated, last name updated, then okay, but always when you are reading the data, you logically need to go through all the events since the beginning. So the only thing that changes is that okay, instead of listening for one event that user profile updated, you listen for two events. Okay, first name updated, last name updated. So it's I think in this case it can be quite the same. That okay, do you want this fine granularity, or is it maybe easier just to handle a bunch of these fields in a bit bigger clump?
I would imagine if you go like between contexts, bounded contexts, it would be beneficial to have more data in the events.
Yeah.
And if you're doing events within a context, you go for the smaller granularity.
Yeah.
because you're talking about the same thing, you know what the first name means in your context. But yeah, to map between contexts, you probably need the entire data.
That's a good point. So when we have systems that produce events that some other systems are reading, then usually we want to put as much information into that event so that, okay, when somebody sees this event, okay, it knows everything it needs. It doesn't need to come back and call our system. Okay.
That was a very good point. There are actually two tribes running this. One tribe says that put everything you have into event, and the other tribe says that put as little information as you possibly can into event. I would say that put enough information into event so that consumer can act when it receives the event. And then what you say, it's actually very good when you go enter bounded context, put everything you have, because then you save yourself from trouble having meetings with another domain. Can you add this information? Can you add that information? If you publish everything you have, they have everything. They don't need to come ask more information.
That's kind of like different context, but like for example, some people use GraphQL, at least on the server side. It's they reduce the amount of different API queries. So at least on the server side, you have one bigger blob of data. Then you can just pick what you want from there. So in a sense, in event sourcing system, you have like enough data that you can use in multiple different contexts. So different applications can list them for the same data.
Yeah.
And another powerful tool is that how do you name your events? We use the example like first name and last name. You can have both events, first name changed, and then you have all the data from the customer in that event. And then you can have last name changed and all the same data, okay, it's perfectly fine. But it's more fine granulated than just publishing customer details changed. That doesn't really tell anything, but if you say that first name changed or last name changed, then you are expressing what actually changed in your domain. But this is the current information after the deal.
But then of course you can only change one value at a time. If you think that the customer has like the full form of his customer data open and then he changes stuff and then presses save. So maybe in those cases like just like changed, like account details changed would be like that.
Yeah,
Right.
that's also perfectly fine. Everything comes what's actually important. If it's important to know that it was only first name we changed, then you need to publish it. But if it's enough to know that details changed, it's also perfectly fine. If that's,
And
if you only say the changes, right?
Again, it depends. Usually it's a tricky and nice thing when you are running this session to start counting that how many times people start to say it depends. It depends. Like I say, event or fact, it's something that happened. Changes are something that happened. So usually when you publish an event, it's because of something happened, either something changed or something else happened. So it can be a change, it can be something else.
And also, what you were talking about, that okay, if the user has a big form and okay, he changes many things and presses save, the user doesn't need to know that okay, that under the curtain of what really happens there. Here we have like okay, the user did this command, okay, make a reservation, and there's information about the user's name. Okay, actually in here we are splitting this into multiple events. So okay, we have one event about the user contact information being updated, and okay, then second information that then deals more about these dates on which the reservation is happening. So it doesn't need to be like one-to-one correspondence. From one command you can produce 0 to many events.
Something about changes. Do you try to keep your transactions within one public context? Is it even practical across
actually, it's I think the aggregate root. It's a very unfortunate name. Nobody knows what it means, but maybe a better name for it would be transactional boundary. So, okay, we have this aggregate. It's the transactional boundary, and it makes sure that all the invariants we want to maintain. Okay, it makes sure that those invariants are fulfilled. But then when we then have multiple aggregates or multiple external systems, then we need this. We need to communicate by sending these events and commands. And then we also need to start taking care of things like, okay, if this command failed, do we try it again? And if nothing has happened for 5 minutes, okay, do we need to maybe cancel something and roll back some other operations that we did? So retries and timeouts and that kind of things start going in there.
Okay, now we'll be discussing about building things from scratch. How about changing the existing other reservation system? Do you do it from scratch or piece by piece?
I prefer doing piece by piece.
Of course, I do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Everybody would like to do that. But in practice, is it practical? As I'm interested.
I think in most of the cases, rewrites should be avoided, and you should try to do it. And even if you are rewriting, you should do it step by step.
Financial business is usually impossible.
Yeah.
Usually the systems and the external systems and integration points, there are lots of them, and so it's impossible.
Yeah. Mika, it's the alarm will go on, so yeah. Yes. So okay, continue.
Probably I said
Yeah.
everything I needed to say. So to me, from scratch, in general, okay, if it's the possibility, that's the way to do it, because then you get all the information at the same time for the new system. But the harsh reality is that most of the times you can't do that. Well, of course, I don't know what kind of systems you have done. But
Yeah.
in client services, systems are quite huge.
Yeah.
And that's nothing. It's not going to happen. You know that there are still need for a couple of programmers. So it means that systems are running for ages. And that kind of system, they are not rewritten just like that. So if event sourcing is to get into use, what's the approach, or what kind of approach should be adopted, or what kind of approach is recommended, or is there any?
I think we can say it depends.
Well, of course.
What?
Well, I would start making implicit text. Well, putting the events on a wall. What do we have? And then, I don't know, these are designing, these are the most important events we need to have public in our systems, and then we will start publishing those events. I agree with you that rewriting everything is usually it's not possible. I would say it's never possible, and it's hardly a good thing to start writing everything from scratch. So once you have those events visible that are actually happening in your system, and then you can say that this is the ultimate goal where I want to go. That's when I have all my events published. And then you implement a small change. Start publishing something. You find out whether it makes sense at all. It might not. And then you implement more.
Yeah, I get that. Actually, I kind of figured out that by myself, but let's assume that we have a complicated integrations with several systems. It has to be done in one transaction. To me, it seems that you cannot just like that take some part of that and change the design completely different, because the whole transaction must be handled somehow.
Yeah.
So probably the whole transaction sequence should be redesigned before
Probably
made up. And that could lead that thing never happens. Because it depends, of course, if all these systems are in my hands, then it may happen. But if I own something and use something, then it's a little more difficult.
So yeah, it's event sourcing, but publishing events is, I think, the easiest way to extract some functionality from your system, because if you have a legacy system and you publish an event for something like logging or email notification or something, some other system, microservice can read it and react to it, and if you just publishing one event, and it, of course, that's not event sourcing, but it's maybe least disturbing thing for your existing system to do, to take something outside of the system to some other system to react. Of course, it's not event sourcing; it's just one thing. But publishing events isn't. It doesn't probably affect your running system very much. You can break the functionality out. Of course, it's a long way to event sourcing.
Do you kind of mean that you like make the legacy system publish an event?
Yeah.
Then you build a microservice, for example, that listens to the event, and that's something that the legacy system already does, and then you delete the code.
Yeah, you can maybe move functionality, but of course it's not event sourcing. It's a long way, because event sourcing you should have everything published, so you can run the ledger and get the current state. But I think that if you
like some part of the software,
but I think if you have a monolithic system, it's easiest way to bring something out of it is just publish event or some event queue, because it's hard to break anything. So I think if you have a legacy system, it's publishing some events should be relatively easy.
One practical example of how to migrate something new is, for example, Facebook, the profile view of events. They were using some database there, and then they decided, okay, let's just move everything using MySQL. Okay, of course, that's not about event systems in itself, but basically they were running the two systems in parallel, and then comparing that basically the output data would match.
Yeah, but the thing is, but they have money, lots of money.
Yeah.
That makes a difference.
Yeah.
For sure.
Of course.
I'm working for a small bank, and it means that we don't have unlimited amount of money. I would like to have. It's not the case. So, but yes, if you have resources, that's one way to do it, and sometimes something like that must be done if you're going to migrate to a new architecture or new systems. But, yeah, but the thing here is that the whole when you start from scratch, you can do this. Except I recommend reading Martin Fowler's blog about the what's that?
CQRS. Yeah.
And in the first paragraph, he says that the whole system cannot be or shouldn't be done using event sourcing. And it shouldn't be the goal. And I think that's important. But how to get, or what are the benefits that I would need to? Okay, you mentioned a couple of them. That if history is important, audit logging would be something, but also audit logging in general is done by just logging system and then using Splunk or something like that to collect that data quite easily. I'm not saying that that's the best way to do it, but I just don't. What are the real benefits of this?
Well, one more is like debugging some problems that happen in production. You can like very easily recreate the same state locally because you have the same log that you can build up to the same state that was in production. That of course assumes that you have, I guess, everything.
Yeah, well, because and at some point, if you're going to build up the current state, somewhere you have to initial state, which is kind of static data.
Yeah, and also, well, what you said, and also one other reason that why I'm interested in event sourcing is that I'm hoping that it helps to keep the structure of the program because in the long run I have seen that we have had a project. It has been going on 3 or 4 years or so, and the core parts of the system start to tangle themselves with many responsibilities, and I'm hoping that event sourcing, we have this one source of truth about the events, and then we can have multiple models based on those events for different use cases, and they are quite decoupled from each other. So the reason why I'm looking into event sourcing more deeply is that there's some hope that this helps to keep the design of the software more clear. But maybe we can continue talking about these things later. The sauna is warm and there are drinks and probably food also still remaining. So thank you everybody for coming, and hopefully we will have enough ideas for what to talk about next time when we have some meetups like this.